Matt Brown was all over it. Matt Brown from Extra Points has played the game. He's discussed the game ad nauseum, and now he joins us on Mornings with Sharp and Hanley on 1620 The Zone. Matt, thanks for your time. Welcome back.
Hey, good morning, gentlemen. Thanks for having me.
So some of us that are old school, when there's a release date, we follow that, and we're like, the release date is Friday. But now we live in a world where things are different, and the early release is popular. You got it before it came out. A lot of people played it yesterday. My first impression of it is people that know college football that are also probably gamers or get the gamers and what you want were involved, because this is pretty close. I mean, there's a lot of actual stuff that is real in this game, and I appreciate that as somebody who likes the game but also likes the sport.
I think that is a fair assessment. One of the things that was kind of impressed upon me throughout the development process, and I've been writing about this game's development since 2021, probably more than most other media outlets, right? But the thing that was impressed upon me from the school side and from the EA side is that the people that were largely in charge of making this game are college football sickos. They're diehard fans. They went to major programs. They read the same Reddit and the same message boards and follow the same Twitter people that we all do. And they also had a benefit that most other sports video games don't have, which is a longer development cycle, right? From Madden to Madden, you only really get a couple of months to make the next game. And you're kind of relying on last year's code, and there's not a ton of changes you can easily make. And here, because the last game was over a decade ago, you get to start from scratch. I wouldn't say that the presentation or the depiction of every single program and their traditions and uniforms are necessarily perfect, but they're really, really good. and the more that I play it, and I think the more that other people play it too, you're going to notice some other just little small details that probably weren't possible in previous console systems that are really immersive. And I think if the goal was to try and authentically replicate the college football experience as closely as possible, I think they did a really good job.
I was trying to go back on the things that I really enjoyed about the last edition before it went away. And you're right, even kind of in Madden, some of the improvements are very subtle, and you have to play the game a lot more to notice those. But to your point about having so much time off the college game, what was your overall expectation? Because again, I know we talked about this. We'd heard what they wanted, what EA Sports wanted to present, but overall expectation wise, did you think it would be just this completely unrecognizable, amazing experience, or did you think it would be on point and nothing more, nothing less?
I definitely was not expecting a reskin of Madden, which was the community kind of concern over the last 2 years. So They would just take the Madden code, the Madden experience, slap a Nebraska jersey on it, add in a couple of RPO plays and call it a day. Mm-hmm. So I think that was the lowest possible expectation. I was expecting more than that, but I say this with to be honest, I've played other EA games, right? Yeah. And I know that there's a difference between what developers want and what project managers want and what corporate wants, or just the realities of making software. I've made computer games too. I know how hard that is, and I've never done anything close to this scale. So I wasn't expecting Nirvana either. I have a formal, longer review, I think, coming out later this week once I get a little bit more time into it. But I don't mind saying this has exceeded my expectations. The concern that I think I had the most was less about presentation and more about it, whether it was going to be fun or not. Because I don't know about you, my life is different than when I had this game before.
It's a good call.
I can't play this. Look, I got 20 hours in over the last couple of days because I was telling my family this was for work. That's not going to fly forever. and so I was worried, look, am I going to be able to have a Dynasty experience if I can't comb through 9 spreadsheets to make sure that I get this 1 2-star tight end from Gilbert, Arizona? Is there going to be a more accessible way for a washed dad with responsibilities? Am I going to be able to play this game without being able to understand film the same way that some of the actual football players do? And I think my early read here is there is as much room to get granular as you'd like.
Yeah.
And if you would like to get less granular, you might have to fiddle with the settings a little bit. But I believe that there are some ways you can still have a fun experience with it.
Matt Brown, who has been out in front of this, he's been reporting on this for about 3 years. And Matt also with Extra Points, it shows up in your inbox. You can subscribe to his newsletter, and it's well worth the price every morning if you are into how college sports works off the field, everything that goes into that. Matt does a fantastic job. Let's look at it from the Nebraska perspective, because people that are now getting to play the Nebraska side, one of their favorite fight songs is not included. In Memorial Stadium, where it's a sea of red, there is more fans wearing white than there is red. How did the process go where colleges submitted ideas of like traditions and things like that maybe if some schools were more aggressive than others, you get where you don't have a fight song that is in there, or something that you associate with a game day but is not in the video game?
It's a great question, and to your point, you're right. The aggression level, but the level of detail that schools provided was not uniform. So what EA did at multiple times through 2021, 22, and 23 is they reached out to every single school and said, we would like a list of every single sound file that your team plays over the course of a game. We want to know what is being played pregame, what is being played after third downs, what you play after penalties, what's played between the third and the fourth quarters, what are your fan chants, and then more importantly, what are your fan chants that aren't R-rated, because we can't, put the actual word to neck in this game that we're marketing to children, and this whole thing. And I filed a gajillion open records requests over the last 3 years to inspect many of those, right? And you had some schools, like Colorado, that sent 10 gigabytes of stuff, right? They open up the university archives, and here's all the B-roll and the tracking footage across the entire university. The files that I got from Nebraska were pretty minimal. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that Nebraska, mailed this in. A lot of the uniforms and some of the audio assets were handled by multimedia rights partners, which are then unfortunately outside the purview of nosy reporters like me. But there were a couple of cases here that I actually was on the phone over the weekend trying to make introductions between schools and EA about some files that got lost in translation, or went to the wrong marketing guy, or the university's third party rights holder, that didn't do X, Y, or Z, or EA says it didn't do X, Y, or Z. So what I would tell people, it's not going to be perfect everywhere. Part of it is about licensing. Right. At Wisconsin, for example, obviously the huge tradition between the third and fourth quarters is just jump around. Well, Wisconsin doesn't own the rights to jump around. And EA Sports, would look into it, and if they determine, hey, that's too much money for a song that's only going to be used by one team, maybe that gets added in the future, but they have to kind of make that decision. That's part of why some actual fight song arrangements or this version of Hail Varsity or this version of something else don't get in the game, because the school surprisingly doesn't always own the rights to those things. But other stuff can be changed over the course of the season. That's kind of the fun thing about video games now, right? It used to be, when you had Bill Walsh College Football, if it's not on the cartridge, brother, you had to wait till next year. And now they're going to push out a patch probably this Friday. And there's going to be updates to rosters. There's going to be updates to uniforms. There's going to be updates to playbooks. So if Matt Rule pulls out some crazy jet sweep that's not in the game in October, it can be in the game in 2 weeks.
Okay, so that leads to a question we were talking about when it comes to attention to detail, which I think from everything I've seen from the leaks, I'm not an early access guy, unfortunately, but we've seen from Nebraska's standpoint, the red on red. And I know at one point when you had the uniform options back with the old game, you could mix and match everything and anything. And it didn't necessarily have to be a uniform that they would actually ever wear in real life, but you could put it together if you wanted to. Do you all that information that universities are sharing, does it go as far as even the uniforms, or is it based on what you know? Can you do whatever you want to do as the gamer?
Yeah, when you are firing up a game, whether you're playing with Nebraska or Kansas State or UTEP or whoever, you have a variety of preset uniform options.
Mhm.
I don't think I'm telling tales out of school here. Oregon's going to have more of those than Nebraska or Penn State is,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But then you can also cycle through helmets, jerseys, pants, socks, and shoes.
Okay.
So if you wanted to, theoretically have a black helmet, red shirt, white pants, different shoes, something that might not even pass NCAA regulation for like a visiting team. Yeah, you could do that. If you want to do color on color for a rivalry game or something, you can do that too. It's more fun, I think, if you're at a school like some schools have 12 or 15 different preset uniform options.
Mm-hmm.
Some have 2. I have been told that substantially more uniforms will be added over the course of the year. When I played a beta version of this game in May in Orlando, and I saw some uniforms there that I don't see in the game now, which makes me think that they're going to, they'll be re-updated or added a little bit later. But you have a lot of flexibility in that department as a player.
Great follow on Twitter. Matt Brown joining us, Matt Brown EP. So let's go big picture here. As people are consuming the game and yourself in the media are talking about it and have been talking about it, and they've rolled it out with lists that draw conversation on sports talk shows. Now everybody will have it on Friday. What do you think this does for the sport? The pop culture angle, places that aren't college football hotbeds. I know you live in Chicago, so it's kind of in between. What do you think this does for the enthusiasm towards a sport that right now is kind of all over the map?
I think that there are really 2 potentially exciting places where this can help grow the love for college football, and one of those is internationally. I'm going to have a story I think that will publish in the Guardian, based in England, I believe today, where I interviewed fans in Belgium and England and Brazil and all over the world about this, because right now it's very difficult to get access to actual college football broadcasts on television if you live outside North America.
Mm-hmm.
But you can watch the NFL in a lot of Europe. There's a lot, hundreds of thousands and millions of NFL fans in Mexico and Brazil, and across South America. My family's in Brazil. Like I can tell you guys, it's not an accident they're sending the Eagles there this year. Like people care.
Yeah.
But if you can't watch Ohio State and Nebraska in São Paulo, you can get a copy of Madden. And people have had access to the game there. This is the first college football game that's getting a worldwide digital release. And so I absolutely expect there to be people that are going to go pick up this game on a lark because they're just gamers, and then become curious in the sport in real life, just like many of the people that I talked to who got bootleg copies, a decade and a half ago. So I think that's exciting. If anything, I actually think college football has more upside in Western Europe and South America than professional football does, because the attitude and emotional relationship that Americans have with their college program is much more similar to the relationship that South Americans and Western Europeans have with their club soccer teams than how we feel about the NFL or the NBA. It's a way more emotional, provincial kind of relationship. So people will understand that kind of spectacle. I also think this is really important for reaching a generation of people that every athletic director is terrified about, which is Gen Z. Everyone's worried about student attendance. Everyone's worried that the millennials and people much younger than millennials don't watch television the same way. They don't buy tickets the same way. And if they don't have the same kind of foundational experience when they're young, they become less likely to become donors when they hit their 40s and 50s. There are young people that engage more with video games than they do with broadcast television. And so I've been talking to a lot of ADs. I'm telling you, like, I haven't played a video game since Mario, who are looking at this and thinking, I am so excited because this is a way to get my brand in front of a bunch of people who are 16 to 22 that I really struggle with otherwise. And I would actually expect universities, probably not Nebraska, but maybe some other smaller ones, who are going to look at this as part of their enrollment strategy. Legitimately look at this as how do we incorporate this video game into our advertisements to high schoolers? How do we use this as part of our university branding wide initiative? And now we're getting into the kind of stuff that I write about all the time. But this is much bigger than just a video game that people like to play on Thursday nights when they get home from work. This is an almost public good and pillar of college football in this country.
That's wild to think about, but it doesn't seem so far off. Now, you answered part of my next question right there. And I thought maybe it would be a dumb question, but I had to ask it anyway when it comes to what each school is providing EA Sports with the detail, especially game day atmosphere. My question is, and again, going back to what you just said about athletic directors, how they're excited about this because this can enhance maybe a little bit more of the student involvement, probably answers part of this. But to your understanding, or could you see a scenario where certain schools that don't release a lot of information about different songs that are played during games, or they're a little bit more defensive or not giving up as much because they want people to still experience that at the live venue as opposed to the game? They feel like if it's on the game, then maybe it dilutes a little bit of the product. I mean, do you imagine or envision that there's any bit of that with certain schools, maybe real traditionalists that feel like if they give too much to the game, then people are maybe not going to think the in-person experience at their venue is as special?
That's a good question. I don't want to say it's impossible because I haven't talked to everybody. There's 134 schools, but I've never heard that raised by an AD or an associate AD or anybody at like a Learfield or Playfly.
Yeah.
Broadly speaking, the schools that didn't share a lot, I think that it was more about they didn't do it because they don't have the administrative capacity.
Mm-hmm.
The AD didn't understand video games. It didn't go to the AD. As you guys probably know, there's a ton of administrative changeover. I mean, right? Like Nebraska had, 3 ADs, right, in 6 months for a minute, and that means that sometimes stuff gets buried. And I know of at least 2 G5 schools that are missing some information for explicitly that reason, and that's why they're hoping that they can kind of get added a little bit later post release. What you're describing is a lot of why schools were really hesitant to embrace television for so long.
Yeah.
But I don't think I've met anybody that feels that way about the video game.
Matt, fantastic stuff. You're a great follow. We always enjoy our conversation. You've been on top of it, and it's quite a week in the world of gaming that crosses up with college football again. I asked yesterday, did people leave cookies out for Denard Robinson? Because he did us well for 4,000 days.
Yeah, I'll leave on this. Like, I don't mind admitting this. When I got the game on Friday, I got a little emotional. And part of that is, right, this has been a dominating part of my professional career for the last 3 years. I'm not dumb. I know I'm typically writing for ADs, but my coverage of this game is how a lot of regular fans became aware of my company and became aware of who I am, and was something I spent a lot of time on. My name's in the credits, right? I talked with a lot of developers and kind of like helped with a few small things on the back end. So to kind of see this and realize I've spent so much of my life, tracking this, and I know how important it is to other people, and to finally have it was really meaningful. And I know that there are players that when they're going to get this today, I think they get their codes at noon. There's going to be some tears because people are excited about the NIL money. They're excited about the truck. But for a lot of people, and especially in a market like yours, especially for somebody that grew up in Nebraska, there's going to be some kid from Grand Isle who all they ever wanted was to be in this game. When they get on the sticks and they see their name, even if they're a 64 overall and they're 4th on the depth chart, it's going to be a sign that they made it more than any of those checks are.
That is absolutely. Matt, appreciate it as always. Thank you for your time, sir.
Of course, fellas, anytime. Thanks for having me. Have a great rest of your day.
That's Matt Brown. Follow him on Twitter, Matt Brown EP.